My name is Vivian Phillips. I go by the pronouns of she, her. I am African American. My skin color is about caramel color, and my hair is salt and pepper. And I'm wearing a black shirt and black rim glasses. Ida.
And I'm Ida Cole, and I am white with kind of dirty brown hair. I'm of a certain age. I also go with feminine pronouns with she and her, and I'm wearing a kind of a maroon color blouse.
It's so good to see you.
Great to see you too, Viv.
How's everything in New York?
Well, things are fine here. I mean, it's
Right.
the same as most places. It's shut down to a certain extent. I think because New York was hit with this pandemic so early that people are very serious about everything, about masking, about socially distancing. But people are out and about. It's fine.
That's good. Super. I miss having the opportunity to visit with you in New York and for you to be here in Seattle. We usually get to see each other at least once a year. So
it's really true.
But instead, we're going to have a really revealing conversation, I think, so we can let people in on what led you. Let's start there. What led you to purchase the Paramount Theatre and then subsequently, I think, develop with the Seattle Landmark Association, which then became the Seattle Theatre Group?
Right. Well, I had finished a long career in technology. And I had worked really, really hard, and I was so looking forward to retiring from that. And I did all the things that were on my to-do list. I did an archaeological dig in Tunisia, and I learned French in France, and I went to Italian cooking school, Bugiali in Florence, and then I didn't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any idea what was going to be next. I was walking with Chip Wilson, and he said, if you really are looking for a project, the current owners of the Paramount are having trouble. The control of the theater had gone to outside investors, people who did not live in Seattle. And the convention center was looking for a place to expand. And of course, if they could tear down the Paramount, they would have one real estate deal to make rather than having to make dozens, for various properties. And I had been to the Paramount. I went, early in my time in Seattle, I went to the Paramount with my stepson, JP, and we had gone to see Violent Femmes, and it was a gorgeous place, but a wreck. It was it was really a wreck. When I purchased it, only 20% of the circuits worked. It was really in a lot of trouble. When it rained, all the exit signs would fill up with water. It was, but it still had these great bones. It was still just a beautiful place.
So it had a special place in your heart, right?
Absolutely. And I knew that I would not purchase it unless I could make it really usable. They had been doing a Broadway season there, but they couldn't do any of the big shows, the new shows that were coming out. There just wasn't enough room. So before I purchased the Paramount, when I was still doing the due diligence on it, I went through an agent and I purchased the parking lot behind the Paramount, because I knew I would have to extend the stage. And if I couldn't get that parking lot, I wasn't going to even go any farther to look at the theater. But I did get the parking lot, and I thought the worst thing that can happen is I have 16 parking spaces, in downtown Seattle next to the convention center, that it would all be okay. So I started working, and I did due diligence for almost a year. I did the purchase, and I really did just at that time purchase the debt on the building so I could get those Portland partners out of the way. So it was going to be a Seattle project after that. So I purchased the debt on the building, and over the next year or so, I purchased the rest of the building from the owners then.
So
Um,
it's interesting that you say that the convention center was looking to expand, and that would have been the place that they would expand to, because next time you come to Seattle, you will see a major Washington State Convention Center expansion that almost dwarfs the Paramount Theatre today,
yeah.
but glad you saved it. You know, at the time, Ida, I recall there were a number of, to be exact, Seattle at one point had 39 of those grand movie houses. And so, what was it about the fact that this was really going to be one of the last grand movie houses that really stimulated your interest in saving it?
Well, I had personal experience with it, and the other thing is you couldn't build it again. Um, there aren't the artisans around to do
Yeah.
that kind of work anymore, and it's spectacular. And it was a necessary place. It wasn't a place that so many places are really just for one art form or for another art form. So you have a symphony hall that has perfect acoustics, and you have a special hall that is made really just for the opera and the ballet.
So purchasing it in its condition, which was a wreck, had a lot of neglect, a lot of deferred maintenance. How did you get to a place of figuring out what that theater would need in order to sustain over time?
Well, I was lucky because I had both Chip Wilson, who was my original partner in the Paramount,
Mm-hmm.
and was just it never would have happened without him. And also Douglas Gray, who had for years run all of the entertainment on cruise ships and things like that. So he knew what needed to be built there to have the theater come out the way we wanted it to come out. Of course, I had, consultants and this and that. I mean, this was a new business to me. Although that first year, when I ran the theater in the condition it was in,
Mm-hmm.
before we started the restoration, I learned a lot. I was a fast study, and I learned a lot about what was really necessary and what wasn't. Um, and so, yeah, we chose an architect. We chose contractors. I had professional project managers because this had to be done on a certain date. Um, there wasn't room for me to learn everything, even though I love project management. It's one of my favorite things to do. But it was so important that we did this on time. And after that first year, I could get other people involved.
Mm-hmm.
I was not going to get anybody else involved until I really knew how this business worked and what I thought could be done. And we could measure the level of support in the community, and I could see whether or not people would come forward and help with this. And people did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the restoration of the theater, you talked about purchasing the back lot. Fun little fact about the back lot. I don't know if I'm sure you remember this, but the owner of the back lot, Bruce, whose last name I can't remember, I do remember that he is the great nephew of one of the architects, Benny Prateca,
Right.
who who designed the lower level of the theater. So that was a daily bit of
Yeah.
history that we used to get from Bruce while parking our cars in the
Exactly.
back.
Well,
But at the time,
yeah.
huh?
I was saying one of the weird things about the back lot is that it had been used as
Yeah,
a tire resurfacing place or a
yeah,
tire, you know, and so it was full of these hydrocarbons, and all the dirt that we dug there had to be hauled offsite and incinerated because
right.
that it was full of these terrible things. So, we had big dump trucks just taking dirt away. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and it all had to be burned.
So at the time, Broadway had been a part of the business model, and was critical to the future sustainability of the theater. So the renovation had to fit into that Broadway model. At the time, the largest show that was touring, if I'm not mistaken, was Miss Saigon. And so the theater had to be fitted in a way that it would actually accommodate the largest touring production.
That's right. And there were other touring productions coming.
Yeah.
Phantom of the Opera was already on tour, but they had not done their biggest show yet. They called them large bus and truck shows. So Miss Saigon had 24 semis, you know, in order to load this in. And the Phantom of the Opera was even a bigger show when they brought it out, but they had brought out the smaller show first because so many theaters could not handle the large show. But yeah, we had to be able to land a helicopter on stage. Do you remember that? We had to be able to do these things. And you know, the temperatures had to be right. Everything had to be pretty much exact. This was a Cameron McIntosh show.
Yeah.
His shows have wonderful quality, and we had to be able to show that off. So yeah, that was our first show. That was our first show for the Broadway season.
So that made a necessity to blow out that back wall and extend it by how many feet? I think, what,
16,
I don't remember.
it used to be 29 feet, now it's 48 feet. So you do,
okay.
Yeah. I think 19 feet, that must be 19.
Yeah, yeah. And it had abysmal back of house and horrible dressing rooms. And I remember that.
Room, yeah, had been painted this kind of baby diaper brown because when Yul Brynner came through with The King and I, he always wanted a brown dressing room. And of course, they never got repainted. So there was this really just atrocious color in the dressing rooms. And we built all new dressing rooms on the extension, right over the extension of the theater. We built new dressing rooms. Yeah.
I was thinking earlier today, actually, that I've not seen a press conference like the press conference that announced the renovation of the Paramount Theater. I don't know if I was responsible for that. But anyway, I just remember the sound of a helicopter, the simulation of an explosion on the back wall. You come down the aisles as if you were
landing
directing a landing of the helicopter. There was a piece of the renovation that was always planned, but that did not happen when the theater reopened, and that's the flat floor. Can you talk a little bit about the significance of adding that flat floor?
Right. I think Douglas Gray is the one. Chip Wilson is the one who had said we should find a way to convert the floor system. Douglas Gray had the contact of the only person really in the world, Rocco Campagnone, who had actually done this system before. So we did, in fact, get everything ready to do the flat floor, but it was clear we were not going to make our date for Miss Saigon if we waited for the flat floor. And so we did not open with the flat floor. We instead reseated the theater, put in our floor. We did before we did that, we did all of the excavation so that when the flat floor system did come in, we didn't have to rip everything out again, that we could in fact install it in an existing space so that we could save time because it took some time, obviously, to do it. So when we were doing the original renovation, the floor of the Paramount, which the Parks Department very kindly unprotected for us, we could dig out the floor of the Paramount. The walls, the ceiling, the proscenium, the lobbies were all protected under the landmarks ordinances. But they allowed us to rip out the floor, which was just wonderful. But it looked like we were going to do rodeos there. You know, it was just this big dirt floor, and it was a huge, huge space. And we had taken the seats out. So it really did just kind of look like this, a construction site, which it was. Yeah.
Right. I just remember the excavation, you know, going on, and you just wonder, wow, are they ever going to actually be able to put this back together?
Yeah.
But they did. What was one of your biggest fears about the restoration of the theater while it was actually taking place? I remember some of mine, but what were some of yours?
Well, there were expenses that I did not expect. Uh,
Yeah.
Before we turned the first shovel in anything, we had to, get rid of asbestos and other things, lead paint, and we had to strap the walls for earthquake proofing and things like that. And I think we spent $4 million before we ever started anything. And I just
Hmm.
thought, oh, gee, because I was on a budget and I was getting other people involved. And I did get other people involved. We created a private partnership in order to do the restoration. And, um, they got tax credits and they got depreciation. They got all those things that was going on. But I just thought, I do not want to go back and
Hmm.
ask for more money from these people. And luckily we didn't have to. We came in, on time and on budget. Thank God. I had very good project managers. And there were a few things we had to cut out that I think we would have liked to have done, but that's the way of a project. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, I think part of the tower renovation was
Yeah,
one of those things that didn't
absolutely.
get to happen.
Yeah.
So you remained involved though in the theater like on a day-to-day basis until after the
2004,
year 2000, right? 2004?
2004, yeah.
Wow. Wow. So what's your involvement with the Seattle Theater Group today?
I go to celebrate. That's it. I'm an honorary person. And if somebody wants me to talk to people, I'll talk to people. If someone wants me to have lunch with a funder, I will do that. If somebody wants me to just say how happy I am to be there and that it's all turned out so well, I'll go do that.
That's super. We
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So
Oh,
now in New York, you are now involved with the Lincoln Center, right? Or and all
yeah.
of that, the Lincoln Theater and all that that encompasses. I do recall that probably during some point of your tenure with the Seattle Theater Group that you were on the board of Intiman Theater as well. And Bart Scher, who was the artistic director at Intiman at the time, also left Seattle and went to Lincoln. So I'm just going to assume, or actually, I know that you all were connected or probably still connected in New York.
Yeah.
So
No,
what's that experience like?
well, we're great friends and we've
Yeah,
always been. And I'm friends with his family and I'm godmother to his children as a
lovely.
grandchild. Um, and he is the one who introduced me at Lincoln Center Theater. He had done Light in the Piazza there
Right.
the year before I went on the board. So he and Craig Lucas, who had done the book for Light in the Piazza, introduced me to Andre Bishop, who at the time was artistic director of Lincoln Center. Now he's executive director. Um, and I went on the board there. It was the theater that interested me the most
Hmm.
um, because it does things that really no place else can do. Uh, no theater in the country could have afforded to do 3 parts of The Coast of Utopia, which was an incredible production to bring
Hmm.
in. Um, it it also did, it brought in Warhorse from London. It has done so many unbelievable things. And of course, won a lot of awards along the way, but that's not really what it's about. It really is about the celebration of timeless stories. 3 theaters, the same as we have. So there's a theater that is really devoted to a large audience participation, which is amazing to me. Their largest theater is smaller than the Moore,
Mm.
but at the same time, it's the Broadway house.
Hmm.
So it's where these showy pieces come. The theater with about 400 seats does edgier work, and that's the Mitzi Newhouse. And then I I led for them the creation of a new theater up on the roof, and it's a 99-seat theater. It's
Awesome.
not a black box theater. It's fully capable of producing almost anything, and it's for new artists. And so everybody who works there at the Claire Tao is a rookie to our system.
Mm.
And it's how we bring in, it's not just new writers, new playwrights, or new actors, or new directors, but also new lighting designers, new costume designers, people who are trying to establish themselves in the theater world. And it's important, you know, it's important to have those steps that people can take. So they're not falling flat on their faces the first time in a 2,000-seat house, you know, that people do in fact get a chance to hone their craft.
What a great place for you to
Yeah,
be working in that environment and lending your expertise. So,
it's
so
great.
in these times of COVID and post-COVID, and I don't know if anybody really knows exactly when there will be an opportunity for gatherings that are so critical to theater. What are your thoughts about the future of theater, live theater, and Broadway, and what's gonna transpire?
They'll come back. Obviously, they will come back. I mean, this is a multi-billion-dollar business in New York. It's hurting New York economics terribly to not have any of these theaters open. At the same time, everybody knows what's going on. You know, there's none of the denial that you read about in other places in the country. Everybody in New York, since we lost so many people early, and everyone in New York knows somebody who has either been horribly ill or who has died of COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, they're doing what STG is doing. They're reaching out to their patrons. They're reaching out to people. There's new work that's being created now for the internet. Lincoln Center Theater is doing brand new programming that is specifically for this kind of way to reach an audience. It's tough because, you know, probably, and I think you probably feel the same way. I know I feel this way. There's nothing like live theater.
Right, right.
You know, there's just nothing like it. You can't get anything on a screen that's like it. There's no danger, you know, on a screen when you're passive. You know, when you're at the theater, you're a member of the theater. What happens that night depends not only on what happens on the stage, but what happens in the audience, what the reactions are, the kind of energy that comes across those footlights to the people who are performing.
Yeah.
It's so incredibly valuable. And people here are mourning, you know, they miss it so badly.
I bet.
But at the same time, you know, it is what it is. That's what our president said, isn't it? It is what it is. We're all dealing with what we need to deal with, and nobody wants to go back until it's safe to do that.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, people are hoping for the spring, and I'm hoping for that too.
Yeah, it's really been an interesting time. I mean, I loved seeing Hamilton on screen because I picked up a lot of things, right, that I didn't see any of the 5 times that I got to see it in person, fortunately. But with theater's whole purpose really being to bring people together and be in physical relationship with one another, and to share those experiences, I'm beginning to find it more and more difficult to say,
it really is.
I just dying for a live performance.
Well, theater gives you this opportunity to have this lengthy conversation, and to talk about and bring up things that you can't do in another way. If you ever tried to say the things that they talk about in theater, in some theater, you know, people's defenses would come up right away. And instead you can show, while telling a story, what you want to say, and you can actually have a conversation about it without it becoming so personal that people can't discuss. So, I mean, it's invaluable. It's an
Yeah.
invaluable tool for long community conversation. And I think particularly with things that are going on now, and you know, with everything that's going on in our country racially, I think that the thing that is most amazing to me is that so many people didn't notice it before. This is not new stuff. And I'm amazed that people are just educating themselves now to what has been part of our world for such forever, really. I mean, for my lifetime and for many lifetimes before mine. But I think theater is vital
Right.
to talk about these things, because it's very difficult to talk about them in conversation. Very, very difficult.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up, and I do want to talk a little bit about the state of America right now. And I was reminded that you and I met in 1991, right after the beating of Rodney King, and you brought together some folks just to talk about what can we do. And all these years later, we still need to have that conversation. So I want to ask, when or what role do you see is real specific role for theater and venues to be playing in this time when we're really trying to broaden discussion around race and equity and inequities?
But there's a lot we can do. It is obviously, COVID complicates everything, because the ways you need to get together are not possible to do in a really safe way right now. But generally speaking, hypothetically speaking, generally speaking, there are several ways that theater can get involved with this conversation. Access, which is something that we have been providing, and we do more and more and more of it. We provide more and more to school groups, to communities that are underserved in many ways, to adults, to kids. We provide access. Where I think we could be better is in answering the question, access to what? And I do think that that is a whole open field. When we talk about how theater can in fact connect people together, we have to find the place where that meets. There are many, many places it does. There are timeless stories. There are things that cut across all these lines that have to do with coming of age, with various stages of life, with people we can all recognize up on the stage, the villain, the hero, whoever that is. And so there is that, but there are ways to broaden that as well. Representation is so important, and not just on stage. And I have a little bit of beef with how, because that's the part of theater that people see as actors, and
Right.
and they may see musicians or things like that. But honestly, I mean, why don't we have more casting directors of color? Why don't we have more CFOs of color? It isn't just being represented so that an audience can see you.
Yes.
It is in fact being part of that process, whatever that process is. Traditionally, people of color have gone to work at organizations of color. So you look at Kenny Leon before he took on the Alliance Theater in Atlanta, which is a major mainstream theater, but had worked in primarily Black theater before.
Right.
And not in what I would consider the mainstream, which is trying to get to every part of society. And I do think, we had talked a long time ago, Viv, and I don't know whatever happened to it, about a program called Before the Curtain Rises,
Yes.
which talked about careers for people
Yes.
in theater, backstage, sound, musicians, stagehands, all the things that have to happen, theater accounting, the things that have to happen, compliance.
Yeah, I
And
think we made some significant headroads down that path to make sure that people understood, and particularly people of color understood, that there were just a myriad of places in which you can be employed in the theater. But I do think that over time, representation has faltered, and not just in all areas of the making of theater, but also in the creation of the stories and what stories get told. And
right,
I think that there is a breakdown in what people value.
yes,
Because, as you refer to mainstream, there's always more value on what we consider to be mainstream stories. And one of the things that I always say is that my history is African American history is American history.
it is, totally is.
So it's
Well, and
no reason to marginalize.
no. I mean, and August Wilson, certainly taught us that.
Yes.
There,
Yes.
there are just as many lessons for me going to see one of his plays as for anybody else in the audience.
Right. Right.
But I do think that it comes to this opportunity, and it's why I love what Lincoln Center does. I mean, there's a whole theater devoted to brand newcomers.
Yeah.
And it's not just a reading, it's not just a skit, it's not just a thing that's put together, it's full scale production. Everything.
Right.
Everything is there. And it is a way to cut your teeth. And as well as I do, work begets work. The way you get work is to do work and have people see that work and work with people to make it better
Absolutely.
and then see it again.
Absolutely.
And it's the way that happens. And so it is getting the opportunity at every part of that process so that you enter an arena, because this is incredibly competitive.
Yeah.
But you
Right.
enter an arena prepared to do battle,
Right.
prepared to have that happen.
Good
Hey,
evening,
Mara.
everybody. I'm Maura Ahern, Seattle Theater Group's Director of Development. My pronouns are she and her. I have shoulder length, light colored hair, white skin, and I'm wearing a black patterned top and brown framed glasses. And I'm jumping in because we have received some questions.
Super.
And so Ida and Vivian, I'd like to share some of those with you.
Shoot.
The first question is a quick one. Ida, when did you purchase the parking lot?
I think it was 1992.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then for Ida or Vivian, with all of the performances that you have seen throughout the years, is there one in particular that stands out to you?
I have two that stand out to me. And one was Prince. I mean, it was outrageous. It was outrageous. It was so good.
Was that the Prince Jazz show?
No.
The regular Prince show.
Regular Prince show. And do you remember that, Viv?
Oh yeah. Yes.
Just amazing. It was an amazing show. And he was supposed to play, I think, Key Arena or something like that. And the Sonics made the playoffs or something happened.
Mm-hmm.
And couldn't, and he played the Paramount on a one night only show. It was amazing. It was just spectacular. And the second one for me was Bette Midler, because she just blew me away. I went to see her every single time she came there. She was spectacular. She was so wonderful. And here, I love Broadway. I was a Tony nominator, all these other things. These are not Broadway shows. These were just personal, and I will never forget them. How about you, Viv?
Oh my God, there's so many, so many. But that Prince kind of unplugged, jazzy thing that he did at the Paramount was incredible. And I had to say that Fela at the Paramount was transformative.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look at the others. Buena Vista Social Club. I mean, I'll never forget that concert. It was so good. No, there were so many. It's really true. There were lots. And I love being like a customer at my own place. I mean,
right.
I get so excited just to see these things. That honestly, the programming we've been able to get over the years has been outrageous. Really wonderful.
You know, my favorite thing, though, is looking up when the theater is full and seeing people all the way to the back wall and the sound of satisfaction. You know, when people are standing up and they're clapping and they're cheering, and that just fills my heart.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Vivian, I want to ask you another question.
Uh-oh.
Because you have contributed so much to Seattle Theater Group over the years, from your days of working with Ida to being a member of the board of directors to being the director of marketing and communications. Is there something you feel most proud of, or is there a memory you'd like to share?
Oh, wow. Oh, well, I don't know if this actually really counts as most proud, but it's in my face. That new logo. I love that logo.
Yeah.
And that was one of the best things I got to do for the organization, was to work with Cindy Chin and Ken Potts and the whole marketing team and do that. I loved STG TV as well. But one of my most poignant memories is standing in the theater when the restoration was, you know, about to take place. And the company that did the chandeliers came in and they literally dismantled all 10,000, is it 10,000 or more pieces of crystal?
A million pieces.
A million pieces, yeah. Okay.
All the chandeliers.
They literally, you know, dismantled all of the chandeliers, piece by crystal by crystal, prism by prism, and packed them away and put them on the back of a truck to carry them up to Linwood, I think, to clean. And I just had this moment where I was like, we're never going to see those again. They're never going to make it back.
Yeah. No.
My heart sank, but you know.
And they were so, I don't know if, but you know, there was smoking for so many years in the theater that they were all full of nicotine. They were all yellow.
Like you couldn't see them.
Dull. Oh, and now they're so amazing.
Yeah.
They're gorgeous.
Yep.
Ida, another question for you that was submitted. What did you see in Josh LaBelle that gave you confidence that he could be Seattle Theater Group's next leader?
Now, I'll tell you, I mean, I have a lot to thank Chip Wilson for, but this is one of the things I have to thank him for, is that he had hired Josh. Chip actually left the organization, I think in 1995, right after we opened again. Right. But he formed a little company and he was doing our booking. And he hired Josh, who had worked for the William Morris Agency. And Josh was such a star, and it was easy to see he was a huge star from the very first time I met him. And I sort of picked him. We invested in him. We sent him to classes. I taught him how to read a financial statement. He went to leadership classes in the city of Seattle, which they held for young, promising people. And when it came time when I really felt he was ready, I actually got together with him and David Allen, who was our facilities manager, who really handled that part of the operation. And I turned things over to them. And I feel that they have always exceeded my expectations. I really feel that way about the whole organization. I think that the organization would be a much poorer one if it had to only rely on my own vision. The vision and what's happened at the Paramount and the Moore and the Neptune has gone much farther than I ever could have imagined. And it is due to great leadership. And great leadership includes the influx of new ideas from anybody that has them. And so I feel like, you know, Josh has been just a great steward. Vivian did a fabulous job. David Allen did a fabulous job. So did the other people that were there. I mean, I met some of the best people ever at the Paramount, and because they shared my passion for the work we were doing.
Well, we told everybody we would keep this to 1 hour, and believe it or not, we are there. This conversation has flown by.
Yeah.
Ida and Vivian, we are indebted to both of you. Thank you.
Thank everybody for coming.
Thank you so much.
To everybody who has joined us, thank you for your partnership, your enduring support. We really cannot wait to get back to the theater with you again.
Is there a plug supposed to happen for this Save Our Stages?
Save Our Stages.
Yes. Save Our Stages. I think if you go to STG.org, STGpresents.org, you can find more information about Save Our Stages and help support.
Yeah, Save Our Stages is legislation that will provide financial support to the whole live arts community, which was the first people to close, the last people to reopen, probably. Yeah. And so in order to keep these organizations vibrant and to keep really good talent employed, it's just such necessary legislation. So there's the ability to write to your congressman, write to your senator. It's important that everybody, all fans of live performance, get involved in this situation.
And I guess it's www. Do people say that anymore? I guess so. Save Our Stages. It was that .com. There you go. SaveOurStages.com. All right. Love you all. So good to see you. And
bye. We'll do it again soon.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Laura. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.